Hey, everybody, Jamie Trull here. Let me fix my hair because, that's what you do when you get on camera. Your favorite CPA, financial literacy coach, and profit strategist. I am live. So wherever you're watching me, I'm live on my Facebook group, Financial Literacy for Women Business Owners. Make sure to join us over there. I am also live on my Facebook business page and on YouTube. So if you're watching me on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. So today I'm going to be doing my usual stimulus update it's every other Friday now. I'm doing these stimulus updates for now as things are still changing, but not as frequently as they were in the beginning. So it's pretty interesting to be here now in May of 2021. If you had told me that I would still be doing stimulus updates over a year later. We started these in March. In March, I was doing them like once a day for about 3 months, pretty much like 4 or 5 times a week. So now we're down to every other week. I feel like it's a lot more manageable. Hi guys. Hi Stacy. Tell me you're here. Tell me where you're watching from while I wait for you. I've got some updates, a couple of different things that we haven't talked about a whole heck of a lot here. Some of them not specifically just for business owners, but are important and you should know about. Yes, this is absolutely true, Jody. I don't know that I would have leaned into this work had I known that 14 months later I'd still be doing it. But I'm actually really glad, really glad to be able to kind of help and guide some of you guys through all of this. I don't know if any other moms are really excited. Today was my son's last day of school, last day of first grade. I've never been more excited for summer to be here, mostly because he's been doing first grade in our guest bedroom. So I'm pretty excited for online school to be done. It has gone better than I expected for a 6, now 7-year-old, right? But still not the most fun thing to do. So I'm excited for him to get back into the school building next year. Hi, guys. Okay, cool. We got Home Health from Little Rock. We got Chris from Iowa. Hi, guys. June 17th. Ugh. See, we start at the beginning of August, though. So that's the thing. Like we start the first week of August. So our summer starts early, but it also ends early. But we have a million different trips planned for this summer, mainly because we need to get out of the house. We all need to get out of the house. Okay, so feel free to ask me your questions, but the couple of things I wanted to mention. Today, I want to talk about the child tax credit because for those of you that have kids, I know there are going to be people, we're going to get to July, and all of a sudden people are going to be like, whoa. Where is this money coming from? Why is there money showing up in my account? And they're going to be very confused, but you're not because you're here right now. So the child tax credit is something that's a little bit misunderstood as to what's going on with that. But for 2021, and they're talking about making these changes going forward as well, but that hasn't happened right now. The only year that has changed for this is 2021. And typically you get the child tax credit when you file your return. So when you probably recently just filed your 2020 return, you would have likely gotten, if you're under the income limits, $2,000 per child as a tax credit. Now, tax credits are amazing. They're way better than deductions. Deductions just reduce your tax base that you're calculated tax off of. Credits actually reduce the amount of taxes that you pay, right? So a deduction, if you have a $2,000 deduction, you take $2,000 times your tax rate, let's say 25%, that's a $500 tax savings. A $2,000 tax credit saves you $2,000. I'm a big fan of credits. Credits are amazing. So the child tax credit is one we normally get, and it's typically $2,000 for people who have kids under the age of, I believe, 17 or 18. I can't remember where the cutoff is exactly. And typically, the income limits are, I think it's $75,000 for single, $150,000 for married is when it starts phasing out. So one change that's happening for 2021 is kind of similar to what happened with the stimulus payments, where it was a new tax credit, but we got them early, right? So they gave us the tax credit early. It doesn't mean we gave it back when we did our taxes. It just means we don't get it again when we do our taxes, unless you didn't get the stimulus, then you could get the tax credit. So what's happening with the child tax credit is they've increased the amount. So it's no longer $2,000 per child. It's $3,000 for children 6 and up and $3,600 for children under 6. Okay, right? Yeah. That's the new amounts. And half of that they're going to give to you early. starting in July. So everything I've heard says July through December, they're going to start sending payments directly to you, kind of like what happened with the stimulus. So if they have your banking information, it will show up. If they don't have your banking information, it will probably be a check in your mailbox or a debit card in your mailbox for this amount. I actually think it's a great idea, mainly because, it's fine to wait for your tax return and everything, but people need money, as the year goes on to pay for things like childcare. Kids are expensive, you guys. I have a 7 and a 4-year-old. They're expensive. So giving people money up front that they can use, I think is a great idea. And it's almost a little bit of an experiment. And I'm curious to see, they may continue this in the future as well, depending on how it goes with this. But basically, they're upping the credit and they're going to give you money early. So what does that mean? If you are under the income limits, right? $75,000 single, $150,000 married. And then I think it phases out. I can't remember what the phase is off the top of my head. I think it's $112,500 for head of household, right? If you're under that, then starting in July, you're going to get money. July 15th, they say the first payouts are supposed to come. So July 15th, you can look into your bank account and see if you have kids under 6, that would be $300 per child under 6. If you have kids between 6 and 17, that would be $250 per kid. That would just show up for 6 months. And then the other half of it, you'd still get to take a portion on your tax return. I like that they did it that way because one of the things that could happen, right, if people took it all up front, is it's possible that like in previous years, maybe they're used to getting a refund because of the child tax credit. And it's possible that getting it early, they wouldn't get that refund or maybe even have to pay. So I think this kind of splits the difference a little bit where you still get some of it up front, but then you also still get a tax credit that should reduce your taxes, when you go to file them. So I think it's a really great move. I'm curious to see how it goes. I hope it's not as clunky as the stimulus payments have been. They are planning, for those of you who just had a new child or need to update your banking information, they're going to be rolling out portals on the IRS website soon. So I will be making sure to keep you updated on that. So you can make sure to go update your banking information or make sure it's correct and update for new children to make sure that you get that money. But, I think this will be interesting to see what happens when, this is a great question. Yes. So if you'd rather take it against your tax liability and get more of a refund, right? If you'd rather get it as a refund, on your taxes, you can opt out. So that would also be something you would do. I think the default is that you're going to get it, but you can go in and opt out. So again, I don't think that they have that up and running yet, but once they do, I'll let you know and you can opt out to it. It totally depends. And I think a lot of people are like, it's not really getting anything more because it's just a tax credit we were going to get. But it's really similar to the stimulus where you are reducing your taxes, right? It's not just moving it from one place to another necessarily. And it is an increased tax credit as well. So it's more than we got previously. So you're still like, even if you got the $1,500 early, right? Let's say you were going to get $3,000 because you've got a kid over six or over. Then you would have gotten $2,000 previously. Now you're going to get $1,500 early and $1,500 on your taxes. But you can definitely opt out. They have said if you don't want to do that. I would imagine so. Yes, because it is a tax credit, it is going against your tax liability. I would imagine that just like your taxes, it would be open for garnishment. They have not made any rules that it isn't. So I would say probably yes. Let's see. I don't know what the cutoff is. I don't know what the cutoff is and how they're going to work that out. I'm curious to see what the details end up being on that. And if you get it up until they turn 18 or not, it'll be interesting to see how the details unfold on that. But I haven't seen specifically what to do with those cutoff dates and like kids who go from 5 to 6, how much are they going to get? So I haven't seen any of the details on that, but we shall hopefully see more. Basically, the IRS website is pretty mum to the like nitty gritty details. It just has the general things, but they have said that those payments should start July 15th, mid-July. So we can be watching that and seeing how it goes. Let's see. let's talk about unemployment. So for those of you guys who maybe had unemployment last year and maybe you filed your taxes early, that happened to a lot of people, and then they changed the rules, right? At the end of March or so, they changed the rules on unemployment. And what happened with that is people who had already filed, they basically said, for everybody, they said the first $10,200 you receive of unemployment is non-taxable. But they didn't make that rule change until late March. So people who had already filed, they were like, what are we going to do? And the IRS said, don't file an amended return. We're going to handle it. We're going to automatically get you your money back. And people have been asking me, well, where's my money? I haven't gotten it. Should be probably for most people, it's between $1,000 and $2,000 back that they would be getting for this. They have started making some of those payments. I've heard that they're doing them in order of how complicated the return is. So for example, they're doing like single filers first who have pretty straightforward tax returns. Then they're going to move on to married, and then they're going to go to the more complicated tax returns. Something important to note here is they're using they're not going back and recalculating all of your taxes. They're using kind of a shortcut method to do this to make it easier because there's a lot of different returns that they're having to go through. So if you have a really complicated tax return, you might want to talk to a CPA about, or an EA about maybe filing an amended return if you think that it might be beneficial for you, right? Like if somehow that extra $10,200 made some other differences on your tax return, and taking that out as non-taxable might have a major impact. Now, if you have a pretty straightforward tax return, I would just take what the IRS is going to give you back. But if you feel like you might be able to get more by recalculating your full tax return, I would talk to a CPA about that. But those have started coming out. They're expected, but it could take, I heard, last until August for them to get to everybody. I'm getting lots of questions on where's my tax return, where's my refund. I haven't, there are still people who have, especially people if you paper filed last year in 2019, that still haven't gotten their refunds back. So they still haven't processed some 2019 returns. The IRS is so behind, you guys, so behind. So that's just something to know. It's not just you. If you filed, you're like, I filed in March and I still haven't seen anything. That's why they're incredibly behind, because of everything going on. So we will just have to see when all that comes through. But it is not just you. I want to make sure people are aware of that. Let's see. Okay. What else? So that's all on those things. PPP, while most of the PPP money is gone, I have been getting questions on this. I believe it's a little tough to tell because the website still shows there being money, but I've heard that a lot of that money is really fees that they're paying to bankers. So it's not really clear how much is actually left in PPP money. They have CDFIs, which are community depository financial institutions. I might be making that up. But they typically target, women and minority-owned businesses. So there is some money that still is in that bucket, from what I understand. So there are some lenders. Now, you can look in your community around you and see if there are CDFIs. There is a finder on the SBA website, but it's not been terribly useful from what I found. There are some kind of online banking platforms that are partnering with CDFIs that might still be taking applications. So one that comes to mind is Blue Acorn. I cannot vouch for them. I do not know anything about them. I don't know, I can't tell you much about them, but it does look like they're still taking PPP applications, and some people have gotten them in more recent days. So if maybe you were waiting, here's one. Yeah, maybe there's another one, Lendistry. That might be as well. So there are a few out there that are still taking applications. Some of them may have stipulations about who they're taking applications from, right? And wanting to focus on like women-owned, minority-owned type businesses. So if you were waiting, maybe because you didn't want to have overlapping covered periods and all of that, right? Then maybe you can see if you can apply through one of those for potentially your second one, or even your first if you haven't gotten one. Thanks, Jody. Yeah, so there are still people that are accepting PPP applications out there. Most of the money is gone. So just be aware of that. I am cautioning people, I would not use Wompley. They are not my favorite. Those of you who have been around know why. But there are some other ones that you could try and see if you could get in. Now, just make sure that you don't take that money. I'm really recommending people don't take that money at least within 8 weeks. For some of you, you might want to wait 11 weeks. We talked a lot about that. I think the last one of these that I did, and I did a YouTube video as well on the whole covered period thing and not wanting to have overlapping covered period and my feelings on that. Yeah. I mean, Wompley is still doing it. I think they do have a CDFI partner. Some of their business practices, not saying that like they are legit, they are legitimately partnering with banks. People are getting loans through Wompley. I just think some of the practices that they're advocating for, I'm not really huge on. So as long as you're making sure you don't have overlapping covered periods and all of that, that's fine. But I think there are other lenders out there that I trust a little bit more. I'll say that. Okay. All right. Nothing has happened with that. I am not hopeful that anything will happen with that, in large part because not only would it take this change, they also would have to put more funding towards the program because the funding is gone. So right now there's no money to be able to go back and say, okay, people who got it under the old rules, we're going to give you more. There's no money. So, and reappropriating money, not the easiest thing to do in this in this environment. So again, if you feel strongly, call your congresspeople, write them letters, do all the things, right? But I don't think that it's one of the more pressing things that's going on right now. But if that changes, I'll let you know. Let's see. Okay. Great. Yeah. Let me know what other questions you guys have. I also wanted to make sure I mentioned to you, I'm going to share my screen really quickly, and I linked this above just if, I get a lot of questions of what's still available, what kind of, funding is still there. Now, of course, searching for grants is a good idea, but if you come to sba.gov, here, I'll follow the whole thing. sba.gov. Oh, no. sba.gov. Okay. And you go to learn more, relief options. You're going to get to this page, which shows you some of the things. So you can kind of click around in here. Paycheck protection program. Obviously, we know that, but there's a lot of information in here. It's got the forgiveness applications and things like that. EIDL information is here. You can still apply for an EIDL loan, but if you haven't applied yet, you're likely not going to be able to get the grant that's associated with it. Restaurant Revitalization Fund. If you have a restaurant or food service, you want to look at this, okay? Even if you got PPP. Shuttered Venue Grants are another one. If you're a venue, a music venue, a theater venue, whatever, there's a fairly broad range of things. Those are really, really important ones to look at. Yes, they are open. They are open. So all of these are open. So if you go to, Shuttered Venue Grants, I'll show you. It's going to give you a bunch of the information about it, and it's going to have an apply here. And then you can go and, you basically have to register and you can start the process. So you can read all about like the requirements and things like that. If you're not sure, you can see what it is. It talks about who can apply, live venue operators, theatrical productions, live performing, like there's talent reps even, right? You just must have been in operation by February 29th. Let's see. And you can apply with PPP. Originally, they said, nope, if you got PPP, you can't apply. They changed that to say they're just going to basically subtract your PPP amount from your shuttered venue operation. But you guys, these are really big. Like you can get, for eligible entity and operations, January 1, 2019, grants will be for an amount of equal to 45% of their 2019 gross earned revenue, or 10 million, whichever is less. So 10 million max, up to 45% of your 2019 gross earned revenue. That's a lot. So I want to make sure that you guys are taking a look at these and making sure these are lesser talked about because they only apply to a subset, but make sure if you could qualify as a restaurant, the Restaurant Revitalization Fund information is all here. You can apply for that too. now and the Shuttered Venue Grants. Then there's just SBA debt relief. That was like basically relief that they were giving people automatically on their SBA loans that existed for a period of time where you didn't have to pay payments. And it even talks about, if you're curious, like, well, I got this and this, what can I get together? It talks about cross-program eligibility. So there's a lot of really good stuff out there just to make sure that everybody is aware of, because we don't go into detail on some of these programs because they're for a subset of people, but I just want to make sure people know about them. Yes. So new businesses, you're not going to get, like, there's not going to be really like the emergency loans are not for new businesses. You could, however, if you're employing people, for Q3 and Q4 of 2021, you might be able to get the employee retention tax credit. Okay. They did make some changes to that to where new employers, even if you started in late 2020, early 2021, if you're employing people, if you have employees, you may be eligible for the employee retention tax credit in Q3 and Q4 of this year. So that's important to be aware of. Okay. It's really important to be aware of. That's one that I can think of, but that's tax credit, not necessarily a loan. But the SBA has multiple different loan programs that are their regular loan programs. So if you have backup and you have forecasts and things like that, you can go to them and try to get a loan. You can look all over the SBA website for what they have, like their 7A loans and things like that. Let's see. I assume you mean the ERTC tax credit from filing the 941X. I'm not hearing, again, the IRS is way behind schedule. I have heard of some people who filed the Form 7200, which is like the getting it kind of upfront, that have gotten it. But it depends on when you filed, but it is taking a long time. Okay, what can the targeted advance be used for if you work from home and have no employees? I was funded today, but I don't have rent, utilities. I'm a photographer and I had 2 people at the SBA tell me it was a grant and I could use it for anything. Yeah, that's generally true. That's generally true. The advances are not our grants. You don't have to apply for forgiveness or anything like that. You don't have to prove what you use them for. I do think that people should probably still record what they're using it for, right? So that could be paid to yourself, though, potentially, right? That could be paid to yourself. As long as I wouldn't, like, if you normally took $2,000 a month out of your business and you got a bigger, like if you got a $10,000 targeted advance or $9,000 targeted advance, probably wouldn't pay that all out to yourself at once, right? Just because that could be considered a windfall, but more than likely, no one's ever going to come back and ask you. I just think it's a good idea to have documentation. So any kind of business expense, though, any kind of business expense and paying yourself reasonably should be fine with the advance. There's not really rules around it. It's kind of meant to keep people going, and able to pay their bills. Let's see. This is a tough question to answer. It depends on a lot of things. Your state will have potentially different rules on what they want you to do for PPP. So some people decide to stop taking unemployment entirely during, let's say, their full covered period that they're taking the PPP over. Some people are not doing that. It's not gonna. The overlap of unemployment and PPP does not impact PPP or PPP forgiveness, but it could impact whether you are eligible for unemployment. So a lot of states see that as income, PPP as income, especially if you're using PPP to pay yourself, and therefore you should be claiming that income on your unemployment. But states have different rules, and some states aren't really overly forthcoming with it. A lot of people have conservatively just chosen not to draw on unemployment during the time that they're taking, like the covered period, they're taking their PPP over, which for most self-employed people, if you're using it all to pay yourself, would be roughly 11 weeks. But again, check your state's websites. I don't like to opine on anything related to unemployment because it is so state specific. That you want to make sure you're taking a look at anything your state has put out with regards to unemployment and PPP and how they work together. Let's see. I actually don't think, I have to look back here and think, I don't think Shuttered Venue works for musicians specifically. They don't appear to be covered because they don't have they don't have necessarily like a space. So I don't see them listed on here either. I don't believe musicians are covered, but musicians can get things like PPP. Let's see. For restaurant revitalization, I actually don't know what all the stipulations are. They're grants. So I don't know how much, because it's a grant. I usually, okay, here we go. I will show you what I see. Allowable use of funds. This is the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. Business payroll costs, payments on any business mortgage obligation, business rent payments, business debt service, both principal and interest. Note this does not include any prepayment of principal or interest. So that's interesting. That might fall into what you're talking about. Business utility payments, business maintenance expenses, construction of outdoor seating, business supplies, food and beverage expenses, covered supplier costs. I mean, it's a lot of things. So it looks like it is a lot more open than some of the other things. And I think that is because it is a grant, not a loan. So it seems like that would make sense. You just can't prepay. That's what I'm reading here. So that makes sense to me. Okay. Yes. Oh, yes. COVID sick pay. Let's talk about COVID sick pay. I'm glad you asked this, will somebody. COVID sick pay is still available. Yes, it is. Haven't taken advantage of it since I handle payroll myself and worried about causing tax issues with the uncertainty of how to handle it. No. So COVID sick pay is great. I actually even used it for my nanny because we were out for COVID for almost 2 weeks. And we're quarantined. And so I was able to use that for her, where I got a tax credit for the amounts we continued to pay her during that time frame, even though she wasn't working. And so typically with a payroll provider, if you're paying an employee, right? Or if you're on payroll as an employee and you are out sick for COVID, and it also works for giving time off, you guys, for if people get the vaccine. To get the vaccine, and also if they have side effects from the vaccine. It restarted, I believe, I think it was March 30th. So you could give 10 days for a person for having COVID, for needing it tested for COVID, for being quarantined for COVID. You could get 10 days total, or even watching kids for COVID. That's kind of a little bit of a different story. I'll get to that in a minute, but 10 days, anytime 2020 through March 30th of 2021, and then the clock reset. So now you can, again, there's a new 10 days. So even if last October somebody was quarantined and you paid out their 10 days, the clock restarted around March 30th. So you can now pay them another 10 days if they have to be quarantined or something like that. So COVID sick pay still does exist. The way to do it is with your payroll provider. When you drop down, usually this is how it's going to work. This is how it works on the 2 different payroll providers that I use. There's a drop-down menu. You pick, either it says FFCRA, COVID sick leave pay, something like that, instead of regular wages, and you put it in that way, and it will automatically start deducting and adjusting the amount of employer taxes you owe. So it will reduce your employer taxes, and so that is basically you get the money back that you paid them, and there are limits and things like that. I've done a couple lives about FFCRA. If you haven't seen it, I have a YouTube video also that goes over the full program. So you get up to 10 days of sick time, but you also get up to 50, is that right? 50 days of sick time for staying home, if your kids have to stay home, or if your employees have to stay home with their kids because they don't have childcare. So that was probably more applicable last year when a lot of childcare places were closed down and schools were closed down. They had to stay home. So I know, and you could even take that as a self-employed person, right? So even if you're not on payroll, I took it because I had to take time off because both my kids were home from school and I had no childcare for a period of time and I wasn't on unemployment during that time. Even as a self-employed person, I was able to take that credit. They basically calculate, either using 2019 or 2020, your average daily earnings as a self-employed person using that Schedule C line 31. And you can take up to 50 days for watching kids, or again, up to 10 days if you're sick with COVID, things like that. That one, so this is where it gets confusing. There are 2 different ways to take that. If you are paying employees, you take it on payroll. right? Including yourself. If you're a W-2 employee of your own business, if you're an S Corp or a C Corp, you take that when you run payroll. If you're not, if you file a Schedule C generally, or you're a sole proprietor, LLC, not a corporation, then you take it on what's on Form 7202. Form 7202 when you file your taxes, which you probably already did. And a lot of accountants weren't aware of this. One of the calculators that I have linked above, if you're self-employed and you want to know if you were eligible for this, I have a calculator linked above that you want to go to the FFCRA COVID sick and family leave calculator and grab that, because it could be worth thousands of dollars. So like thousands of dollars of a tax credit. And remember at the beginning, I talked about how much better tax credits are because they actually reduce your taxes dollar for dollar versus deductions. So that's something you want to make sure you don't miss. I'm shocked at how many accounts are missing this for people, for self-employed people. I've had people keep telling me like, oh, they're telling me, it's only for employees. And I'm like, no, it is not. It also is for self-employed people that file a Schedule C. If you took time off work and you didn't get unemployment during that time, you had to take time off because you were caring for your kids or you got COVID, they will pay you for those days. Okay, let's see. I need to get running here in just a minute, but I'm taking a look just really quickly through here. Okay, Holly-Ann recently applied for EIDL, the loan, great. What should I expect with the application is being processed, and how long is the approval process? It's actually, they've shortened it quite a bit. So I would expect, I don't know, some people may have more recent experience. In the very beginning of this, it took a bajillion years, it felt like. But within a couple weeks, you should get notification that they do kind of pull credit and look at that and everything before they offer something up. But it should be relatively quickly for your EIDL loan. Okay. Let's see. Linda says, is this accurate from scratch? If not, where can we find accurate list? If you have a self-employment income and file a 1040 Schedule C or F, your non-payroll costs in each category are eligible for forgiveness to the extent that they are deductible. What are we talking about here? I'm not sure I know what we're talking about. Is this talking about PPP? We're talking about eligible for forgiveness to the extent they are deductible. Your non-payroll costs in each category are eligible for forgiveness. I'm not sure what this is talking about for PPP though. The key with PPP, if you're self-employed and you don't have any employees and you can just take it all as owner compensation replacement. If not, if you have employees, you need to use at least 60% on payroll, and then you can use 40% on other operating costs in your business. So that could be rent, that could be utilities, that could be software, that could be various different things. But the max that you can do is, so the max you can do that's other costs in your business. They do have to be deductible expenses. The max you can do is 40%. So that is how that would work for forgiveness. But for a lot of people, if you're just self-employed, it's easiest to just take it all as owner compensation replacement because you can. Okay. Any new guidance about 8-week cover period? My 8-week from disbursement date is June 7th, and I've been holding. Okay, trying to get closer to that date. Yes. Nothing new from what I've said before. My personal opinion, until they come out with any other guidance, is that you should not have overlapping covered periods. Now, could they come out and say that as long as your intention was not fraud, it's okay? Or could they come out and say, only the time that was the overlap is not forgivable and the rest is? Maybe. So it's a risk decision. I'll say that. It's a risk decision. If you go ahead and take it, which I think for some people, they may just decide, you know what, I'm close enough. I'm just going to take it. I don't want to risk losing it. I understand that opinion. I still would probably hold on to it for a little bit and just, not necessarily expect it to all be forgiven. So I've had a few people tell me that, like, hey, I'm not quite at my 8 weeks or my 11 weeks or whatever that I want to use. What should I do? And they're offering me this loan, should I take it or not? And I fully think that's a risk decision on your part. I think if you do take it, just know there is a chance that second loan, either in part or in full, wouldn't be forgiven. Make sure to take it with the right, make sure you have the proof of the 25% drop in gross receipts and things like that, because none of it will be forgiven if you don't have that. But it really is up to you. what do I think will happen if I were to surmise, and this is not advice. It's not advice. But if I were to surmise, I'd say they're probably, I would think, going to come out with something that will not, that will hopefully be preferential for borrowers. But right now, they don't have that. So that's why I always have to go and give advice based on what the rules are now. But the trend of this has been more borrower friendly, so long as you're not trying to do something that is blatantly fraudulent, right? So that is up to you. If you have a loan sitting there and you're like, I want to take it, I don't want to lose it, but I also, I'm curious, does it give you a date by which you have to accept or not, or is it just open? I'm really curious if they're giving any kind of expiration dates on those offers or not, because I'm just, that would be interesting to know if they have one. But it's, again, risk decision on your part and what you are comfortable with regards to the timing of that second PPP loan. I do believe right now the guidance says one thing. So I want to caution people to be ready for what could happen, which is you don't get it forgiven. I'm not necessarily saying I think that's the most likely scenario, but I could see it, right? So that is entirely up to you, what you want to do. Okay. All right, guys. Well, you guys are amazing. And I've got another video too coming out on that next week that goes a little bit more into PPP for sole proprietors. So that should be hitting YouTube around Tuesday. So make sure you guys have subscribed to my YouTube channel because I've got some good stuff coming out on there. And I'm pretty excited about it. You guys are amazing. I'm going to go enjoy the rest of the day, hang out with my son, who is now officially a second grader, which is crazy. It's crazy, y'all. And you guys are amazing. And I will be back. Oh, let's see. I guess I'll be back, I think, doing another one of these, not next week, because that's right before Memorial Day and we are out. But the week after, I should be back for a update on anything that's going on. And I know there are some stimulus bills, you guys, that are being talked about right now. I haven't gone into detail on them because we don't know where everything's going to land. The two parties are really far apart. But is it possible we get another stimulus check? Maybe. Stick around. Bye, guys.